The Blair Witch Project isn't really about a witch. It's about three people slowly realizing they're already lost, and the forest isn't going to let them leave. By the time they understand what's happening, it's already too late. At first glance, the Blair Witch Project looks like a simple found-footage horror film. Three student filmmakers head into the Black Hills forest to investigate the legend of the Blair Witch. They want interviews, footage, and a story. Something they can bring back and shape into a documentary. But that idea collapses almost immediately, because the deeper they go into the woods, the less the film becomes about the legend, and the more it becomes about disorientation. That's what makes Blair Witch so effective. It strips horror down to something much more basic. No creature design, no dramatic reveal, no clear explanation, just three people walking deeper into a space that stops making sense. The forest is the real engine of the film, not because it's visually terrifying, but because it becomes impossible to understand. The same trees repeat. The same paths seem to lead nowhere. Landmarks disappear, direction loses meaning, and once that happens, panic starts replacing logic. One of the smartest things the film does is make the breakdown feel ordinary. There is no sudden possession. No dramatic moment where everything changes, just small decisions getting worse under pressure. The map becomes useless, sleep disappears, and every conversation starts turning into blame. That's why Mike throwing away the map matters so much. It isn't just a frustrating choice. It's the moment the group loses the last illusion of control. After that, they aren't navigating anymore, they're drifting. And once a person stops believing they can get out, fear starts doing the thinking for them. That's when the film stops being about survival and starts being about collapse. At first, the group still believes they can fix the situation. They argue over the map. They retrace their steps. They keep moving. But every attempt to regain control only proves how little control they actually have. That's the psychological horror of the film. Not just being lost, but realizing that being rational doesn't help anymore. The forest doesn't respond to reason, it doesn't care about plans, and the longer they stay there, the more their relationships start to break down. Trust disappears first, then patience, then any sense that they're still functioning as a group. That's why the film feels so real. The fear isn't abstract, it becomes social, emotional, human. Heather keeps pushing forward because she needs the documentary to mean something. Mike becomes careless and resentful. Josh starts collapsing under the pressure. None of them know how to process what's happening, and because there's no visible threat to focus on, they turn on each other instead. That choice is brilliant. Most horror films give the audience something concrete: a killer, a ghost, a monster. Blair Witch takes that away. The horror stays just out of frame. You hear things, you find signs, you see the aftermath of something moving around them. But you never get the relief of seeing the threat directly, and that makes it worse, because once fear has no shape, it can become anything. The stick figures hanging from the trees, the piles of stones outside the tent, the noises in the dark. All of it feels ritualistic, deliberate, like the forest is no longer just a place. It's part of a system, a space designed to disorient them and drive them toward one final point. That's why the ending works so well. By the time they find the house, it doesn't feel like escape, it feels like arrival. That's what makes the house so disturbing. In most horror films, a building offers shelter, a pause, a chance to regroup. But here, the house feels wrong immediately. Not like refuge, like the final room in a trap that has been closing the entire time. The characters don't enter it because it makes sense. They enter it because panic has fully replaced judgment. The film has spent so long removing their sense of direction that the house doesn't read as shelter. It reads as the final stage of the trap. They run inside because they're desperate, not because it makes sense. And then, the film gives us one of the most disturbing final images in horror. A man standing silently in the corner, facing the wall. No explanation, no dramatic confrontation, just a frozen image that feels wrong, in a way the film never spells out. And that's exactly why it stays with people. Because the ending confirms something the film has been building toward all along. They were never trying to leave, they were being led. That's the real horror of the Blair Witch Project, not the witch itself, not even the possibility of something supernatural in the woods, but the feeling that the characters crossed into a space where the normal rules no longer applied, and they only realized it when there was no way back. The Blair Witch Project isn't about what's hiding in the forest. It's about the slow psychological destruction of people who understand, far too late, that they are completely trapped. And that's why it still works, because the scariest part isn't what you see. It's the moment you realize escape was never an option. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to Scary Film Reels for weekly psychological horror deep dives, and tell me in the comments, was it ever really about the witch? Or were they doomed the moment they entered the forest?